Today's passengers on the former Denver and Rio Grande lines ride with the feeling that they are traveling on something old, historic. The railroad is indeed steeped in history, as none of it would have been built had it not been for this man, General William Jackson Palmer. In 1870, General Palmer formed the Denver and Rio Grande, envisioning a railroad connecting Denver with Mexico City. This railroad would be unique, using a narrow gauge with rails only 3 feet apart, instead of the usual standard gauge of 4 feet 8.5 inches width.
It was an economical reason. That's reason he could build narrow gauge faster than he could standard gauge, and also because he wanted to sew up the Rocky Mountain Empire for a certain length of time while he got established. Because other railroads coming in at 4 foot 8.5 inches, they either had to transfer everything to or from the narrow gauge so they could get in there. So he could shut off real interchange, as we know now, between railroads.
As the new baby railroad, as Denverites called it, worked south, General Palmer diverted part of it westward toward the newly discovered mining regions in southwestern Colorado. In 1878, General Palmer lost a legal battle with the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad, thus ending his dream of reaching Mexico City. The railroad shifted its entire focus west into the mountains, with the narrow gauge main line running to Salt Lake City, as well as the San Juan extension, which was pushing towards Silverton. In 1880 and 81, narrow gauge rails were laid south of Alamosa, Colorado, snaking their way over Cumbres Pass before dropping down a steep 4% grade into Chama, New Mexico. From Chama, the line headed northwest to Durango, where the branch to Silverton headed north into the mountains. As soon as it was completed, the San Juan extension began hauling ores out of Silverton. The railroad became the backbone of a newly developing region. At the same time, the Denver and Rio Grande realized that to be competitive, it must convert to standard gauge. Thus, when the Silver Panic of 1893 hit, the narrow gauge line to Silverton was already part of a shrinking system that the railroad did not want. With silver prices falling drastically, the boom was over. Nearly 100 years later, the boom times have returned to Durango. Every morning during the summer, train after train marches out of town. No longer carrying the riches of ores from the mines, the railroad is after new riches, those to be made from attracting the modern-day tourist. The Rio Grande no longer runs the railroad. Passengers boarding trains now proudly lettered for the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad. As the Denver and Rio Grande was a child of the 1880s, the Durango and Silverton was born of the 1980s. The locomotive terminal is a throwback to earlier years, with several steam locomotives lined up in a row, being prepared for yet another day on the road.
Well, I learned each personality of each one of the engines. Each one of these engines has personality of its own. What I mean by that is just how they take the fire, how they take the water, how they stay steamed, and you know, it's just like babysitting. My favorite engine is the 476 because she's easy to coal, she's easy to dump. And then again, probably my second favorite is the 497. She's probably what you call an engine watchman's dream. She's got a big firebox. You very seldom have to coal her. She stays steamed real well, but she's a hard one to dump.
The locomotives on the Durango and Silverton are all Durango veterans. The 3 remaining 470 series locomotives have spent spent over half of their working lives hauling trains to and from Silverton. The 480 and 490 series locomotives have also spent many years in Durango, working on the narrow gauge main line to Alamosa, the branch from Durango to Farmington, New Mexico, as well as other parts of the Rio Grande narrow gauge. Now they all run to Silverton, pulling thousands of vacationers on a trip to yesterday. Leaving Durango, trains head north into the lush Animas River Valley. Now, to say that the train is full is an understatement. It is usually sold out. The most popular cars are the open cars that allow passengers an unobstructed view of the scenery. Most passengers settle for a seat in one of the more traditional coaches. The passenger coaches on the Durango and Silverton are unique because many were built in the 1880s, while some were built as late as 1986. And most passengers can't tell the difference. As always, there is someone on the train, though, who is indifferent to everything, reading a newspaper. The speed of the trains heading up the valley is not particularly fast, about 25 miles an hour. There is on the adjacent highway plenty of opportunities to watch the trains go by. About 10 miles out of Durango, the tracks begin to climb up away from the highway and the condos. Then, abruptly, the train leaves civilization behind and treats the passengers to the scenic highlight of the trip, the High Line.